He's still knocking, and it's been over 10 minutes. The thought spiraled in Sarah's mind as she stood motionless in the hallway, barefoot on cold wooden floorboards, staring at the front door that rattled gently with every gust of wind. The rain hadn't let up in hours. It was a downpour that swallowed sound and light, turning the windows into gray, weeping eyes. She hadn't been expecting anyone. Not tonight. Not way out here. The knock came again. 3 slow, deliberate pounds. She flinched, not because it was loud, but because it sounded so calm, measured, like someone who knew she was home, knew she was listening. She reached for her phone, but the signal was dead. A single blinking bar hovered uselessly in the corner. Of course, the storm. Always the damn storm. She tiptoed toward the door, each step creaking louder than the last. The old farmhouse she'd inherited was more shadow than substance on nights like this, soaked in memories she hadn't yet dared to explore. Her flashlight flickered as she held it in her trembling hand. She peered through the peephole. At first, all she saw was blackness. Then, a face emerged. A man, drenched, late 40s, clean-shaven. His eyes reflected the dim porch light like twin mirrors, unreadable and hollow. He wasn't looking into the peephole. He was staring past it, at the door itself, unmoving. She didn't open it. "Hello?" she called through the wood. The man didn't respond. He just tilted his head slightly, as if listening for something behind her. "Are you okay?" she asked again, louder now. Finally, he spoke, soft and monotone, like he was reciting from memory. "My car broke down. The road is gone behind me. I saw your porch light. May I come in?" Sarah's heart thudded painfully in her chest. Something about the way he spoke. Not pleading, not desperate. Almost like a recording. She backed up, thought for a moment. Then she remembered the emergency flashlight in the kitchen drawer, the big one. If she needed to run outside, she'd need real light. She ran quickly, pulled open the drawer, and froze. The back door was slightly ajar. A thin line of wet mud tracked across the tiles. She hadn't used that door in days. She slammed it shut and locked it. Deadbolt. Chain. Then turned slowly. The knock came again. Still gentle. Still patient. She returned to the front hallway. The man was still there. But now he was smiling. It was a small, tight-lipped smile, as if he'd overheard something funny but wouldn't share it. His eyes didn't match the smile, though. They stayed flat and distant. Sarah debated calling 911 again, but the signal was still out. Lightning lit the sky behind him. He didn't even flinch. Just stood there, letting the rain soak through his coat, the water pooling around his boots. She reached for the lock, hesitated, then slowly opened the door a crack. Cold, wet wind burst in like a scream. The man didn't move. "Do you have ID?" she asked instinctively. He slowly reached into his coat, but his hand came out empty. "I'm not dangerous," he said. Sarah narrowed her eyes. That's exactly what someone dangerous would say. For a moment, silence stretched like a wire between them. Then the man blinked, slowly. "It's cold. I won't stay long." The rain intensified, drumming against the roof like a warning. She sighed. 1 hour, she told herself. Let him dry off, charge his phone, and leave. That was it. She opened the door fully. "Okay, but just for a bit. I have an emergency phone inside if you need to call someone." The man stepped in slowly, dripping onto the rug. He didn't say thank you, just scanned the living room like he was seeing something from long ago. His eyes lingered on the fireplace, the photos, the antique clock that hadn't worked since she moved in. She locked the door behind him. "You can leave your coat by the door," she said, trying to sound casual. He didn't. He kept it on, water trailing behind him like a slug's path. Sarah moved to the kitchen and flicked on the kettle. "I'll make tea." The man stood in the middle of the room, watching her silently. "What's your name?" she asked, not looking at him. A long pause. "Jonah." She turned. Okay, Jonah. Cell phone battery dead, I'm guessing? He nodded. She handed him the landline. It doesn't always work in storms, but try it. Jonah took the phone, but didn't dial. Instead, he turned it over slowly in his hands, examining it like an artifact from another century. Then, he placed it on the table. It's okay. I don't need it. Sarah frowned. Then why did you come here? He smiled again, that same unsettling, closed-lip smile. To wait for the rain to stop. The minutes dragged on. Sarah made tea. Jonah didn't drink his. He sat in the armchair across from her, coat still on, hands folded on his lap. He didn't shiver, didn't speak unless spoken to. She studied him. His boots were scuffed, but not muddy. His coat was soaked, but underneath it, his clothes were bone dry. His fingernails were clean, too clean. She shifted on the couch. You live around here? Jonah shook his head. I'm just passing through. In the middle of a storm? In the middle of a lot of things. She waited for elaboration, but none came. The wind howled through the trees outside. Something banged against the side of the house, maybe a shutter, maybe something else. Sarah jumped. Jonah didn't move. I should go check that, she muttered, standing up. Jonah tilted his head again. Are you alone here? The question stopped her cold. She looked at him carefully. Why? He smiled. Just wondering. She took a step back, heart now racing. You know, maybe you should go wait on the porch. The rain's letting up. Jonah didn't answer. I let you in. I tried to help. But I don't feel comfortable. Jonah stood up slowly. Not aggressive, but deliberate. I didn't mean to frighten you. You didn't, she lied. But I need you to leave now. He walked to the door. Relief washed over her like sunlight breaking through the storm, until Jonah paused at the threshold and looked back. His eyes were different now. Not lifeless, but alert. Focused. There's something about this house, he said. You know that, don't you? Sarah stared at him, heart pounding. What are you talking about? He looked up at the ceiling. She watches from the attic, even in the rain. And then he stepped outside and closed the door behind him. Sarah locked it, bolted it, turned off every light in the house. She waited for the sound of retreating footsteps, but there were none. She waited longer. Nothing. She peeked out the window. Jonah was gone. No footprints on the muddy path. No taillights, just the storm and the whispering trees. She backed away, turned, and screamed. The coat. It was still on the floor. She hadn't even seen him take it off. Inside the pocket, she found a small, black notebook. Water warped. Pages stuck together. She opened the first page. In neat, tiny writing, it read, House on Hollow Pike. 1 occupant. Storm due by nightfall. She lets me in. She finds the journal. She reads this now. The next page was blank. But the ink started bleeding into the page right before her eyes. New letters formed. Don't go upstairs. The ink bled across the page like it was alive. Don't go upstairs. Sarah dropped the journal. Her breath caught in her throat, fingers trembling. For a second, she stood frozen, staring at the floor like the book might rise on its own. The storm howled louder outside, but in the house inside, there was a silence so complete it pressed on her ears. She bent down slowly, picked up the journal again, and flipped back to the front. The earlier pages were now gone, blank, white and untouched as if they'd never held a single word. But the last page remained. Don't go upstairs. She felt it then, a shift in the air above her. A tension, a pressure, like someone holding their breath in the attic. She looked up. The ceiling groaned. For the first time in hours, Sarah considered leaving the house completely. Maybe Jonah had broken in earlier through the back and planted this whole thing, some elaborate prank. Maybe the power of suggestion had her seeing things in ink and hearing whispers where there were none. But there was one thing she couldn't explain. That sentence, the one that wrote itself, She'd seen it appear. She knew what she'd seen. She turned every light in the house on. From the hallway to the kitchen, from the bathroom to the guest room, every room glowed dimly in the soft yellow hum of incandescent bulbs. Still, shadows clung to the corners like oil stains. And above them all, the attic door loomed at the top of the staircase, a square wooden hatch embedded in the ceiling. She hadn't opened it since she'd moved in. There was no need. Until now. She sat in the living room, the journal on the coffee table before her, untouched. The coat still lay discarded near the front door, soaked and lifeless. Tea steamed in her mug, untouched. Cold now. She told herself she wouldn't look again, that she'd throw the book into the fireplace, burn it, and everything it meant. But when the next crack of thunder shook the walls, she looked anyway. The handwriting had changed. The journal now read, "I'm not the first, but you may be the last." Sarah bolted upright. This wasn't possible. The journal was soaking wet when she found it, pages warped and stained. How was it writing itself? She flipped rapidly through the rest of the book, page by page. Most were blank, but scattered throughout were tiny sketches, ink drawings done in a frantic, scratchy hand. The house, the attic hatch, the front porch, the living room, and then faces, distorted, half-human faces, always shown from a downward angle, as if the artist was drawing them from the attic. She slammed it shut. No! This was madness. Jonah must have planted it, or worse, someone else was in the house, watching, pretending to leave. She grabbed the fire poker and crept upstairs. The second floor was colder than below. She passed the bedroom, the bathroom, the locked linen closet, all unchanged. The attic hatch stared down at her from the end of the hallway. A rope dangled from it. It hadn't been there before. Her hand shook as she reached up, grabbed the rope, and pulled. The wooden panel creaked open like a coffin lid. Dust rained down. The ladder extended itself with a mechanical groan, each rung unfolding into place like the bones of a crooked spine. The attic smelled of mildew, old paper, and something metallic. Blood? She hesitated. Then she heard the creak. From above, someone or something was moving in the attic. Sarah gripped the fire poker tight and climbed, one step at a time. The light bulb above her flickered. She reached the top. The attic was pitch black. She clicked on her flashlight. It sputtered once, twice, then revealed the horror. The walls were covered in writing. Hundreds, maybe thousands, of journal pages had been torn out and nailed to the wood. Each one scrawled in the same black ink, the same tight handwriting. They covered the beams, the floorboards, the insulation. Some had been written over again and again until the ink turned the paper jet black. Words like, "She never leaves. The rain is the signal. You let it in. You let him in." And then a final sentence painted in red across the largest page. When the book opens, the house remembers. A crash from below made her jump. She turned, heart in her throat, expecting someone, something to be behind her. But she was still alone. She descended the ladder fast, fire poker raised. The journal was gone. The living room stood empty, the coat still there. But the black journal was missing. She spun in place, backing toward the kitchen. And then she saw it, in the hallway mirror. A reflection. Someone standing behind her. But when she turned, no one. That night unraveled in slow, deliberate terror. The lights began to flicker and fade, one by one. The temperature dropped so low her breath fogged in the air. Doors creaked open by themselves. Footsteps echoed across empty floorboards. And in the darkest corners of the house, she began to see her, the woman Jonah had spoken of. Pale face. Long, dripping black hair. No eyes. Only sockets, dark and wide, as if she had wept them away. She appeared only in reflections at first, Mirrors, glass, the black screen of the turned-off TV. And always watching. Sarah couldn't sleep. Every time her eyes closed, she heard the whispering. Low, wet voices from inside the walls. The rain never stopped. By morning, she looked in the mirror and didn't recognize herself. Eyes bloodshot, skin pale. Something moved behind her, but when she spun, nothing was there. She ran to the front door, tried to unlock it, but the key snapped in the lock. She tried the windows, all nailed shut. The house was keeping her in. And then she heard it again. The knock. 3 slow, deliberate pounds. Not from the front door this time. From the attic. She didn't go. She locked herself in the bathroom. Inside the medicine cabinet, she found another page, folded neatly. Ink still wet. I tried to warn you. He lied. The journal doesn't protect you. The journal chooses you. She tore it up, burned it in the sink. The flames turned blue. By nightfall, the house had begun whispering her name. Sarah! 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 Always in Jonah's voice. Then in her own voice. Then in the voice of her dead mother. Desperate, she returned to the attic. But the pages were gone. Every wall, every nail bare. Only one item remained in the center of the floor. The black journal. It was closed. She picked it up with trembling hands. The cover was warm. Inside, the first page was blank until her fingers touched it. Then the ink bled through. Her name, Sarah Whitmore. Her birthday, her childhood home address. And then, she opens the journal. She learns the truth. She dies tonight. She ran, screamed, smashed the book against the floor. It wouldn't tear. It wouldn't burn. She locked it in a drawer. But when she turned around, it was back in her hands. She flipped to the last page. It read only, "He is not Jonah." The lights flickered out. The front door creaked open, and he walked back in. But he wasn't wet this time. He wasn't human either. His eyes were completely black now, stretching across the sockets like oil stains. His mouth opened far too wide, far too long. Inside his throat, something moved. Something with teeth. He whispered, "You shouldn't have read it." Sarah didn't run. She couldn't. Not because she was paralyzed by fear, though she was, but because something had shifted in the house the moment Jonah stepped back through the open door. Time had bent. Every second felt wrong. Her heartbeat echoed too loud. The rain outside had stopped mid-fall, raindrops frozen in midair like glass beads suspended by strings. Jonah, or what wore his shape, stepped forward. The blackness in his eyes pulsed like something alive. A void. It wasn't simply a lack of light. It was hunger. Depth. Endless. He looked at her with that same serene smile, as if this were a reunion. As if this moment had happened many times before. And maybe it had. "What are you?" she whispered. Jonah tilted his head. Not like a person hearing a question, but like a predator assessing a weaker creature. He took another step. "A memory," he said finally. "A story told too often. A name given to silence." She backed away. Her hand brushed the edge of the hallway table. The journal lay there again, closed. Always closed when it needed to be. Always open when it was too late. The pages pulsed slightly, like a sleeping animal's breath. "I want to leave," Sarah said. "I never wanted this. I didn't ask." "But you opened it," he interrupted gently. "You gave it your eyes. That's all it needs." A wind howled through the hallway, though no windows were open. The walls of the house shifted, subtly at first. The wallpaper curled back. The ceiling stretched upward. The floor softened, creaking like a ship in a storm. The whole house was becoming something else. Not collapsing. Changing. Becoming her trap. Sarah turned and bolted down the hall toward the back door, but the hallway stretched like elastic. The door got farther away the more she ran. Photographs on the walls melted into black streaks. Her own face vanished from the family pictures. She screamed. The sound didn't echo. The house swallowed it. Jonah's voice followed her, calm and soft. She runs. She begs. She becomes. She slammed into the back door, tried to pry it open. The lock was gone. There was no handle, just flat, unbroken wood like it had always been part of the wall. She turned. He was there, standing just a few feet away. But this time, something stood behind him, in the shadows, taller, silent. Sarah couldn't see its face, but she knew it had one. And she knew it was watching, waiting. "Who is that?" she choked. Jonah smiled again. "That is who waits when the house is full." She bolted for the staircase, rushing up 2 steps at a time. Her breath ragged, fire poker still clutched in one hand, journal in the other. She didn't choose the attic. She chose her mother's room. She hadn't entered it since moving in. The door creaked open like a tomb. Inside, it was untouched. A time capsule. Dusty perfume bottles, pale blue walls, the old rocking chair beside the window. Her mother's photos sat on the vanity. Only now, the eyes were blacked out, like someone had burned through them with a match. She shoved the dresser against the door, heart hammering, then turned to the journal. She flipped to the last page again. New writing. She hides. She reads. She becomes the next chapter. This is her page now. She screamed and threw the book across the room. It landed near the chair. The chair began to rock, slowly, back and forth. Creak, creak, creak. But no one sat in it. Not at first. Then, gradually, like a shadow thickening in fog, she appeared. The woman was gaunt, wet. Her hair hung over her face in black ropes. Her arms too long, fingers brittle and pointed. Her mouth split open, not in a scream, but in a silent grin of cracked lips and broken teeth. She tilted her head, then pointed to the mirror. Sarah turned, dread rising in her throat. The reflection showed something impossible. It wasn't her own face anymore. It was Jonah's. Smiling, eyes black. She turned away in horror, but the reflection kept staring back, unmoving. The door behind her shuddered. Jonah was outside now. "You don't have to fight it," he said. "Most don't. You'll feel better once the house has you." Sarah screamed and threw open the window. But outside, there was no outside. Only more house. More hallways. More doors, stretching endlessly in every direction like a labyrinth made of wood and time. She looked down and saw herself standing in the living room below, smiling, holding the journal. "No," she whispered. The house wasn't just haunted. It was recursive. A loop. Each victim was absorbed, copied, rewritten. She wasn't trapped in the house. She was the house. The floor beneath her feet cracked. The wood opened like a jaw. Sarah screamed as she fell down through the hallway, past warped stairs, past doors that slammed shut on their own. She hit the ground floor with a soundless thud, and there was Jonah kneeling beside her, journal in his hands. He opened it one last time. The story ends. She is the house, and now she waits for rain. The storm returned with a vengeance. Epilogue. It was late. A lone traveler drove through the countryside, rain thundering on the roof of his car. The road twisted unexpectedly, forcing him off course. His headlights cut through sheets of water. A small house stood on the hill. Warm yellow light glowed through the windows. He hesitated, then got out. He walked to the door. Lord. 3 slow, deliberate pounds. Inside, a woman with black eyes and a calm smile walked to the door. She opened it just a crack. "Are you lost?" she asked. The traveler nodded. My car died. I saw your light. May I come in? She smiled wider. Of course, you must be so. Come out of the rain. As he stepped inside, the door closed slowly behind him with a soft click. On the table, a small black book sat waiting. Closed, waiting to be opened.